Good.
And welcome into Press Box Live. Stan the Fan Charles here of Pressbox and PressBoxOnline.com. Neither Luke Jackson or Ross Grimsley joins me, but I've got a red hot guest who's ready to talk some Orioles baseball. And we're brought to you by the Costas Inn, now with two great locations out there, 4100 North Point Boulevard, which is the location you want for steamed crabs. Tell you how to order them later on in the program, and also the new location in Timonium at the fairgrounds above the grandstand there next to the OTB. Our red hot guest is Andy Kostka, the Orioles beat writer. And Andy, I can't think of a better time to be about 8 days away from going to Sarasota.
Yeah, I'm slip sliding everywhere with my dog right now. So it's, ice everywhere. And I mean, Florida looks a little bit chilly right now too, but at
I
least
know.
there's no ice caked onto the ground. So should be all right.
It does the dog go down with you?
No, she stays with my mom. So,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. Good that you got a mom that can take care of your
lucky,
dog.
very
What
lucky.
kind of dog?
She's a big German Shepherd. Yeah,
Big German Shepherd, boy or girl?
a girl. Yeah,
Girl. Okay.
she's great. Yeah.
All right. I got a call coming in that I got to do away with right now. All right. Andy Koska joins us. We're 9 days away from spring training starting down in Sarasota, Florida. Andy, how close is this roster to being, with the understanding that a lot can happen once spring training opens? But how close do you think we are to having the full complement of the 26 men that will have the roster health considerations on opening day?
Yeah, I still think Baltimore is probably two moves away from being done this winter. One of them being a starting pitcher. We can talk a million hours about that search. I'd imagine a bullpen arm comes in as well. Um, Probably a lower end deal, for a reliever. Somebody that, honestly, who knows if they make the opening day roster, but bring somebody in to
To
compete for
compete.
another
Yeah.
open spot. Just
Is that more likely to be a left-hander
I would
than a
be,
righty?
I would advocate personally for a left-hander, but at this point, I mean, if you told me Michael Kopech, walks in
Yeah.
the door, obviously, I think a lot of people would say yes to that. I think the O's would too. So you would be willing to go with the right price on a right-handed reliever, but I do think another lefty in the pen could be a benefit.
Is he an attractive candidate right now for a number of teams, Michael Kopech?
I believe so.
Yeah.
He is, I mean, he's only 30. I
Yeah.
recognize he hasn't thrown that many innings recently with some injuries in there, but that's a massive fastball that he has. And if you can keep it in the strike zone, like that, he
That
could
is.
be quite a candidate. Uh, Middle reliever, or heck, who knows if Ryan Helsley gets injured, you need guys that can potentially close games.
Let
Uh,
me throw one other name into the bullpen, and that still has to do. It's funny how this lines up. They've got five starters, with the understanding that Zach Eflin probably is not going to be ready till around May 1st. I'm guessing, really ready. Maybe you know better, but the point is, once they get to those five, which are Rod Bradish, Rogers, Boz, Kramer, and Eflin, could Wells be that added arm in the bullpen?
100%. I think, it feels like every single winter I spend most of it thinking about Tyler Wells as a reliever. It hasn't really happened, since he, arrived in Baltimore, but well, the first season in Baltimore was,
Yeah.
but since then, has been a starter, has done well as a starter, came back last year from elbow surgery and looked good as a starter. We just talked to him at the Birdland Caravan before the portion that was not canceled because of the snowfall. He says that he's building up like normal, doesn't really have an indication yet if he's reliever or starter. But at this point, he said at this point in the offseason, he doesn't need to build up any specific way. It's just kind of getting his arm loose and he'll figure it out in spring training, whether it's a little bit more shorter spurts and getting ready for maybe 3 times a week, 4 times a week, or if he's on a starter's schedule. I would be surprised if he wouldn't be the most attractive candidate for that relief,
Yeah,
opportunity. At the same time, I mean, Baltimore has like Chase McDermott. Cade Povich could be a lefty out of the pen. Um, Brandon Young, there's optionable starting pitchers, and all three of those, if everyone is magically healthy, which doesn't never seems to happen for
that
pitchers.
never seems to last
Yeah.
through the
But
spring.
if everyone was healthy, I mean, those three could start the year in AAA and be the first calls up as soon as, somebody gets, tired or hurt. At the same time, adding another starter to this group, seems like it's an inevitability. It has been spoken of for, quite a long time. And yeah, Baltimore has kind of needed an ace, but they might not necessarily get the Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez type of
Yeah,
pitcher. Doesn't mean there are not other, upgrades out there that can slot into that, 2, 3, 4 spot in the rotation. We always talk about like six-man rotations. Somebody, unfortunately will get hurt and it'll probably be a five-man.
there's
Um,
no question that always happens. Yeah,
you basically need going into spring training, if you don't have 8 to 10 starting pitching options, you're probably not going to last a year. And the
yeah.
fact that Baltimore has a couple of them that can be optioned to AAA, that really helps. And the three that I mentioned earlier with Young, McDermott, and Povich, I believe that is the group.
Yeah. What about where does Albert Suarez fit into this? And I wanted to throw one name that just starting to percolate. Trey Gibson had a great 50 inning run, 52 innings to be exact, at Bowie last year, Chesapeake. ERA was
One.
155 over those 52 innings. Then went to AAA and got kind of bombed. But is he a guy that could surface at some point this year, either in long relief or a spot starter too?
I absolutely think we'll see Trey Gibson middle of the season. Spot start here and there.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be shocked if, by the time postseason rolls around, if Baltimore's in the postseason mix, that he would be, thrown in the bullpen. Because of he has a mid-90s fastball and a slider that is fantastic. He pairs that with a sweeper and his curveball is pretty good too. So you add that. He has more than that, but that four pitch mix, kind of stands out to me as his best. You'd love that, the strikeout ability. I mean, last year across, I mean, it was across three levels, so some of it, was in Double A and Single A, but he averaged 12.4 strikeouts per 9 innings last year. That's very promising. He's ranked 72nd in the country for prospects for from
yeah.
Baseball America. So I would imagine Trey Gibson is up. Luis De Leon, another name, did really
Another
well
name
in
that's
Double A.
surfacing a lot.
He might be an end of the year candidate as well. Those are good options to have, but you don't necessarily want to lean on them completely on opening day. They will not be on the opening day roster unless something
No.
catastrophic happens.
All right.
I do think middle of the season they could be in play.
Let's circle back to that starting pitcher, that ace type. We know that Michael King's gone. We know that Amaya's gone. We know now Ranger Suarez is gone. There seem to be there seems to be one real ace left, and that's Framber Valdez. And then you've got two other right-handed pitchers, Zach Gallen of the Diamondbacks and Lucas Giolito, formerly of the Red Sox. Those are all free agents. Tell us where you would rate the chances of the Orioles coming away with them from what you know, or don't. Maybe you don't know anything.
I don't know a
And I
lot
made a big mistake having you on. By the way, I want to remind folks we're talking to Andy Kostka of the Baltimore Banner, baltimorebanner.com. You should subscribe it for the baseball coverage alone. Andy does a fantastic job. Go ahead, Andy.
I do appreciate that. I would say, I mean, I would be pretty shocked if Baltimore didn't land one of these guys. I would throw Chris Bassett in that mix as well
That's a
as
good name. Yep.
just from an innings eater perspective, has the versatility to pitch out of the bullpen like he did with Toronto in the postseason. I think he's pitched 160 innings or more each of the last 5 seasons. I might be
Sounds
off
about right.
might be off a tiny bit, but he's an innings eater, and they're, I mean, as as much as teams can benefit from an ace type. I mean, you need guys to get you to the playoffs and
Yep.
then shift into bullpen roles. So Bassett is another interesting name. But I would imagine the Zach Gallen market is picking up, at least from what I've heard. Baltimore is not alone in that one.
Yep.
Uh, the New York Post has mentioned Giolito being of interest to the O's. I know he also mentioned the Braves being interested in Giolito. You have to imagine, I mean, that's another innings eater. I know he missed all of 2024 with elbow surgery, but came back last year. Missed opening day, but once he came back, still pitched 145 innings. And if you get rid of Giolito's first seven starts, which I know is selective, and
Yeah. That was
we're
a 6 point something ERA, but after that, it was like a
after that,
six or
he was
something.
a sub-3 starting pitcher, and
Yep.
looks, if you get that Giolito on a short-term deal, potentially 1 year with an option or something along those lines, you feel pretty good about it. Jumping to Fromber,
Yeah.
it,
Usually, Andy, to interrupt you just for a second,
it
usually when you're waiting like this, there's something else going on. There's either reticence by the club or there's fears about his health. We know about the situation last year where his catcher and he got in a little spat and he intentionally crossed him up, threw a fastball when the catcher was waiting for a curveball. Where do you think the Orioles stand with Framber? Would they still want him?
it seemed as though he was the logical fit for so much of this offseason. The longer it drags on, the less likely it feels.
Yeah,
That is a gut feeling, not source. Just, I can't, put an exact percentage
yeah,
on how likely it is to get him. But we'll just run through in generally speaking, as you said, the longer it plays out, there's either concerns with whether they're right or wrong. I don't know, but
yeah,
could be concerns with crossing up his catcher. With in Houston last year. Potentially he is 32, so potentially there is an impasse with the number of years being offered versus what he's seeking. Average annual value doesn't seem to be a hurdle for Baltimore, just
right.
based on the offers they gave to Pete Alonso, the Corbin Burns offer they made in 24, the offseason after 24. That offer was a high AAV offer to Burns, so it doesn't seem like that is the hurdle for Baltimore in this situation. Um, it could also, yeah, it could be on player side.
Yeah,
It takes two to make a deal, right? And
yeah,
so, if the player is either holding out for what he and representatives believe is a more fair deal, potentially, it was, he doesn't want to pitch in Baltimore. You
yeah,
don't know, and I'm not. All of these are options. Um, Unfortunately, it is rather quiet on what is exactly occurring
yeah.
at this moment. I wish I could tell you for definite, um,
Okay.
but yeah, we don't know the exact reason, but
So
could be.
when you say the Zach Gallen market is heating up, do
Yeah.
you sense the Orioles are more inclined to turn their attention to Gallen at this point and do his 31 home runs last year, which is a significant jump for a guy who most of his career was giving up like 15 or 17. He had a 22 about 3 or 4 years ago, but 31 home runs out of nowhere was alarming to me.
Yeah, the real alarming. No, to answer the first part of that, I would imagine, I mean, the Orioles are definitely in the mix on Zach Allen.
Okay.
They're not the only ones, but the Orioles are in the mix in the conversation. I would not be shocked if he is the first pivot move for
Yeah.
Baltimore. When I think of the home runs, I look at the knuckle curve for Zach Allen. He gave up a career high 9 home runs with that pitch. That pitch should be his best. It has performed so well. I mean, just thinking about, looking at StatCast run values, and in 2024, it was I think he had a 15 run value, positive 15 run value on his knuckle curve, which really made it like the best curveball among starting pitchers alongside Framber Valdez, actually.
Yeah.
Also has a fantastic curveball, but it was one of the best curveballs in baseball. And then you look at 2025, and it was a -4 run value for Gallen. Um, Part of the issue was Gallen wasn't establishing his fastball on the top of the zone or just outside of the top of the zone. Falling behind in counts. When you're behind in
That's what
counts,
I heard. He was pitching a lot behind the count.
yeah, so if you fall behind in counts, suddenly your knuckle curve, you're not willing to throw it for a ball. You need to land it for a strike. You miss in the middle of the zone. A guy is ready for the off speed, or they can switch onto it. That's going to get hammered, and that
Okay.
you saw it time and time and again. So what really needs to happen, and what Baltimore would need to do with Zach Allen, is to reestablish fastball top of the zone, be able to play the knuckle curve off of that below the zone or just at the bottom of the zone.
Wrapping up the starting thing, where if you had to pick a percentage, is Giolito way down on their list, or has he really been of interest to the Orioles of late? I know he's got some interest around the league.
Yeah, he has interest around the league. I think he is an interesting pivot. I don't believe he is as at the forefront of Baltimore's mind as
Okay.
Valdez or Gallen at this point.
Okay. All
But
right.
I mean, I mean, you have to weigh, contract terms. And if you feel like you're more comfortable with a 1 year for Giolito, um, that could be a sway. If Zach Allen suddenly says he wants 5 years, that might, turn Baltimore against, that option. So a lot of things go into this, of course.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens, and it could happen at any moment, or it could linger into early in spring training. I think the history of these deals with pitchers that linger into late February, March, it's a rush to get them ready. It's almost like a counterproductive move. I would want to get them in on time in camp.
Yeah, there seems to be is a benefit for players to kind of start ramping up immediately,
Yeah.
with a team. We have seen in the past where it really did not work out when I
Yeah, like Alex Cobb didn't
yeah.
work out, and Kyle Gibson, the way they brought him in last year, those kind of things. Hey,
Yeah.
I got to pay a bill with the Costas in. When I come back, I want to ask you how you see the rest of this roster sort of shaping up, and whether there's still time for a Mayo or a Mountcastle move, or you think they're both legitimately going to be on opening day roster. And I want you to give me a grade on what you think Mike Elias's off season has been like. All right. But
Sounds
let me
good.
first tell you about the two locations for the Costas Inn. Mentioned it earlier, 4100 North Point Boulevard is the original location. They've been there for going on 54, 55 years. That's the location, despite its great rest of the menu. That's where you go for steamed crabs. And if you're interested in steamed crabs, take this number down, 410-477-1975. Call them up to reserve your crabs. Make sure you got the price point you want, the availability you want, and the size that you want. And make sure that your crab feast at the Costas Inn is a good time for you and your family. New location has the same great menu, except for the steamed crabs, and that new location is at the Timonium Fairgrounds, high above the grandstand, right next to the OTB, the brand new spanking location there. Both restaurants are open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. Back with our remaining few minutes with Andy Kostka of the Baltimore Banner. That's baltimorebanner.com. And if you're haven't subscribed yet, this would be a great summer to do it, because there's going to be a lot of interesting baseball information out there. And Andy is a great source for your viewing and listening pleasure and following the Orioles. Andy, mentioned going into the break, but we talked about the pitching a lot, but there seems to be just an awkwardness to the position player mix when you have Basayo, Tyler O'Neill, Kobe Mayo, Ryan Mountcastle, all looking like they're heading for making the team on opening day. Could you see them all four being on the roster opening day?
It's possible. I
It's a weird bench, isn't it?
It is a weird bench. It lacks defensive versatility.
Yeah.
That bench, which I think is the major concern with that. Um, as unfortunate as it would be for Kobe Mayo, he has a minor league option.
Yep.
They could put him in AAA to begin the year, see how that goes. That would obviously be unfortunate for a player that has come up and been in the majors before to have another year down
He'd
there.
be very unhappy at that.
It would be unfortunate for him, yeah. But that is an option. I mean, one of the things Baltimore really cares about is roster flexibility,
Flexibility. Yeah.
and they will take the chance if they can option somebody and keep somebody that has that flexibility. They want to keep a guy like that in the organization. There's a reason why Baltimore picks up as many DFA'd players as as it does, because they like the flexibility of, hey, this is a guy that, if they pick him up, if the Orioles pick him up and then they DFA him in a week, potentially he sneaks through waivers and is in their minor league system, and that's
Right.
another, depth piece and quad A player,
Well, they've done it this offseason with Drew Romo, right? The catcher who's now free again,
Yep,
right?
yep,
They've done it with somebody else, I forget, but Wade Wilson. And now, yesterday, they completed a small trade with the White Sox,
yep.
bringing in Brian Ramos, who, when you look at his minor league numbers, kind of interesting prospect. I mean, no great speed, but has some more defensive versatility.
Yeah, yeah, some defensive versatility from him. He's only 23, hasn't performed well at the major league level, but I believe it's only been 36 games.
Yeah,
So it's really hard to take that for, too much of anything. But um, getting back to, that bench, of course, you know, there's still a possibility for a trade. There are options out there. Um, Baltimore could package somebody along the lines of Mountcastle or Mayo. It's going to take a lot more than just those guys to get a deal done, right? They'd have to, include probably some high level prospects in
yep,
that. It'd be interesting to see if Baltimore is willing to, let's say, would they trade Trey Gibson to try to go get Joe Ryan?
right.
That doesn't seem like, the most enticing thing to do. Um, for Baltimore, because one is 23 and has all these years of team control, um, and one is nearing the end of his team control. So that's the big equation that's going to be, considered in the next, we say 8 days, but honestly, this could go on until
Yeah.
opening day and beyond.
Where do you think Jeremiah Jackson, who played really tremendous offensive baseball and solid defensive, aside from the muff ball in Wrigley Field, played a solid right field. Uh, but his last month was terrible. I mean, really gave me pause that maybe he wasn't what we thought he was.
Yeah, there is always going to be a catch up period where pitchers catch up to a hitter. They begin to understand what he is trying to accomplish to the plate. One thing with Jeremiah Jackson is he pretty much decided that, okay, if I don't want to strike out, I'll just never get into a two strike count. What that meant was that there was a lot of soft contact, and weak contact because he's swinging basically at everything. Uh, it worked early when he was ambushing pitchers who were not aware of that strategy.
Yep.
So his batting performances were really great, for the
Yep.
first minute there.
I mean, he was hitting like 350 for like
Yeah.
three and a half, 4 weeks.
Yeah, so it worked, but then pitchers decided, I'm never going to throw you a strike. And
Right.
that's basically then you have to show the patience to lay off of things. So we're going to see what that looks like in spring training. I would imagine he is on the team because of his defensive versatility. He can play third, second, um, most realistically not a shortstop, but can play corner outfield as well.
Right.
he's probably league average defensively at all of them, but at the very least, I mean, he can play those positions, and Baltimore needs guys that, have that ability on their bench because right now the bench does not have much defensive versatility.
All right. I did elicit a response where you agree with me that it's an awkward bench at this point in time. So overall, as we're 10 days away, 9 days away from spring training, what do you give Mike Elias? You give him a B, B plus, A minus, B minus, where do you stand? What kind of off season has he had?
Yeah, I'll give it a B. It's a perfectly fine offseason. I like the splash for Pete Alonso a lot. I thought it was important for ownership to also have a splash like that,
I
to show
agree.
they're willing to spend that money on a long-term deal. Um, he figured out a closer with Ryan Helsley. He went and got more starting pitching depth with bringing back Zach Eflin, but then trading for Shane Baz. I think I'm forgetting somebody in there, but um,
Bringing Kittredge back, I thought was a
yes,
very
that's also
solid move.
that's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, absolutely a good move to bring him back. But it can't be an A because there has been for years.
There's work to do.
Yes, it's we have known for years that Baltimore is in the market for a big time starting pitcher, and it has not happened at this exact juncture. Um, so it's hard to give an A, but I would say a B is a perfectly fair grade. Um, you can hang that on the wall, Mike Elias, and feel pretty good about it.
Last question I've got for you. We talked about it when you were on with us about 5 weeks ago when you were on with Luke and I. Um, if you injected Mike Elias with some truth serum, and I'm not saying he's dishonest, but he does keep things very tight, tight-lipped. I think he adheres to the old adage that lips sink ships. Um, what would you think his answer would be if you said, "Why in the world did you re-sign Ryan Malkout?" I mean, do they really still think he's got something exciting in the tank?
I do think they believe it, that
Okay,
he can have a better year offensively than he did last year. Plus, generally speaking, um, Mike Elias is reluctant to let any player walk. If he has team control, the idea pretty much is you want to maximize the amount of control over
right.
players you do have. If you non-tender him, you're pretty much saying, okay, there's no chance of a trade. There's no chance we can extract value from Ryan Mountcastle. Right now, if things don't work out, um, and let's say they, have to DFA him like halfway through the year, there's a chance he sneaks through waivers.
Yeah.
Or you can chance you trade him. There's a way to keep him either in the system as depth. Worst case scenario, what if Pete Alonso gets injured?
Yeah.
You have a really, really good defensive first baseman at the very least,
Yep. Yep.
and somebody that they feel can bounce back offensively.
All
So
right.
it,
I,
it I was not as surprised, I suppose, that they ended up keeping him just because of from what I know about this front office's policy. Generally speaking, they prefer to not non-tender players because they want to get value in whatever way they can.
Andy, the older I get, the less I think I know him. That one was a surprise to me. Hey, have a great time down in Sarasota. I won't be down until March the 3rd. I'm assuming spring training's a rough time for you to put together 20 minutes in an afternoon one day. We'll see.
It's always doable. It's somewhat doable.
All
It,
right, we'll
you know,
see. We'll
depends on
see.
the time.
I
Yeah,
enjoy talking to you. You do a really fine job for the
I appreciate it.
BaltimoreBanner.com. That's Andy Kostka. We thank him for joining us, and we thank the Kostka Sin for sponsoring these Sports Cab Fest. Talk to you soon. Safe travels, and I'll see you March 3rd.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. There's Andy Kostka. That's it for now. We'll talk soon. Back doing these Zooms. Bye for now.